also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.
Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. Excited for our next episode as always. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, dude. Yeah, it snowed a bunch last night, so it's kind of exciting to see a big layer of snow out the window. It is still pretty warm, like it's gonna melt, I would think here in by the end of the next couple days. But yeah, 7 or so inches for people on video. Uh, here's a good
Nice.
here's a good little shot of it. But
And
yeah,
you're currently in Denali, correct?
yes, yeah,
Yep.
definitely not snowing much south of here. Like even in Talkeetna, I don't think it snowed. Um, maybe the
I saw video of Jesse Holmes. Looked like they got some nice snow as well.
Yes, and he's my neighbor. So yeah, in the same zone, and yeah, so it's exciting to see a little bit of winter, and it feels good to just kind of sit in a warm place and drink some coffee and look at the fluffy wet snow.
Nice. Nice. Here in Georgia, we'll dream that we get like 1 to 2 opportunities to maybe see just falling snow, let alone have any accumulation of said falling snow. In like it'll be like 3 months away if we even have it, kind of thing. I don't know. We got two rounds of snow last year, which was for us is kind of a big deal, but. Anyways, but yeah, no, we're our next this next episode we had our guest was Thomas Wærner and man, we had a good time with him. We'll talk a little bit about that before we get into kind of a preview of things there. Just kind of looking at things, any news and updates out there and Sean and I were kind of talking about some of the newer additions to the Iditarod. I think it was literally just yesterday or maybe in the last 2 days, and we're recording this on September 13th. So, but they had announced Josie Tier, or formerly Josie Tier, and now Josie Shelley. And then also before that was Joshua Robbins, and before that was Connor McMahon. So we're creeping up to that 30 number, which is kind of nice to see. And hopefully we have a few more that fall into place. I don't know if you have any I mean we can always speculate as we like to do, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on any potential names being added to this list.
I don't have any specific names, but there's lots of. I would say that it's all but a guarantee they're going to see. Another name or three or maybe more. Hopefully more signing up. Especially we got to watch out for that exact date that the cutoff is. There's a cutoff date, I believe it's like in November, and then the price for signing up doubles. And with maybe there's exceptions, but I would say whenever that date is, they'll probably be right before that, the week of that. You'll see multiple signups because what's the point in unless you actually know for sure, that you're gonna run this thing. People are gonna wait until the last minute. It happens every year. Like it's happened with Pete
November
Kaiser.
28th.
Yeah, November 28th. So like Thanksgiving time, and so yeah, we'll see who signs up around then. But yeah, there's a lot of names
Dude,
that we've seen
eight
in the past that aren't signed up. So I would say some of those will be popping up.
8K after November 28th. I did not know that was I thought when you did it, wasn't it like five, I thought?
4 is the standard registration fee. I think it's maybe a little cheaper now with shelling you in the having donated a big chunk of money. I think some of it goes to a cheaper registration fee this year.
Right. So normally it's 4. He
Normally it's 4.
donated 2 to each person who signs up before the 28th. So you only come out of pocket 2, but if you sign up after the 28th, it's 8K. That's like, good God. It's a lot of
Yeah,
money, right?
absolutely. I mean, that's standard though. It's always been like that. It makes it seem like way worse though, since it's going from jumping from 2 to 8, but it's
Right.
still um, the regular, uh, last minute price.
Got you. Cool. So, I don't know, like we've speculated on Dallas, but where we are, I'm starting to like scratch my head a little bit and wonder if maybe he's not doing it this year or next year.
I mean, I haven't really talked too much with him, but I mean, he's got a bunch of dogs, and there's definitely, I don't know if anyone's signed up from the kennel, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's not at least one team running the race this year from the kennel, and I would have to look at the list of names, but I'm pretty sure that there isn't uh, so far. So
No, correct.
so yeah, then I would expect there's going to be somebody, and he's does like he. I remember him hearing talking about every other year, and he didn't run last year, and yeah, we'll see what actually ends up happening, but um, I know that everybody's hopeful that he's in it and he can go head to head with Jesse and share the trail with Thomas, even though as what we'll get into later in this episode, he's not running a competitive race this year. But yeah, just to see Jesse and Matt Hall and Dallas as they're that would be cool. It would be cool to see. But if he doesn't, there's going to be a door opening for a new team to kind of get up into that um, upper echelon, and of course we are excited to follow not just the front of the race. Of course, middle and back is fun for me too. So it'll be interesting to see some of these like sophomore and third year racers too. Lauro and Connor, who have kind of accrued like some significant experience over the last few years, and be interested to see what their goals are. But it all starts with training. You can't. Their goals are kind of probably setting right now. It's like, all right, well, everybody's hitting the trail. Great time to hit the trail up here. We got all this snow, and the dogs get extra excited with the snow, and it's great to just like you stop and they roll around and in the snow and play in it and eat a bunch of it and stay cool and stay hydrated. And it makes you be able to run the dogs a little bit farther. You can booty them up, and the booties won't shred on the rocks and roots and dirt like they don't last as long on the bare ground. So it's a like if you make your plans on like when to like run the dogs and how far to run the dogs, but then you like taper them to what are the conditions. And when the trails are like this up here, and you've got the snow, and I'm curious to know what happened in Fairbanks with the snow. Sometimes it can not be as cold there. Sometimes it's colder. But yeah, it's good conditions to run dogs. So maybe you might have had your plan this week. If you live in Denali, your plan might have been, I'm just going to run them 5 or 10 miles a few days this week. But then you see all the snow and you're like, well, might as well make haste while the conditions are the way they are. So it'll be exciting it's an exciting time right now. People are preparing for race season, not just Iditarod, all these other events, including what may be a great segue into the Yukon Quest coming up in February this year. There's historically it's 1,000 mile Yukon Quest that's been point A to point B from Fairbanks to Whitehorse or Whitehorse to Fairbanks, depending on the year. And then COVID happened, and the race, the cooperation between Canada's side of the race and the Alaska side of the race, there was something happened that they just decided, maybe just for simplicity's sake, maybe there's some disagreements, but it's a really hard race to put on when it's international. There's literally, have like a trooper at the border that's checking your passport halfway through a 1,000 mile race. And so they now have these separate Yukon Quests, Alaska, and then of course in the actual Yukon territory, there's one as well. And we've talked to Aaron Peck at length about that last year. But this year, from the Alaska side, there's been some super exciting news that they're planning on a 750-mile loop, and I love, whether you're hiking or you're mushing or snow machining, it's just great to be able to not have to retrace your steps. A lot of these races, nothing against them, but it's like, for example, Iditarod this year, having to do this down the Yukon and back up the Yukon, or most years in the Cusco, you're going out to a point, turning around and coming back. It's really cool to be able to have these loops or point A to point B races where you're not retracing your steps, and it's just more, I think, stimulating for the dogs at the very least. And it's 750 miles. I mean, that puts it at the same distance as the Finnmark, or somewhere around the ballpark of the same distance. And so now you've got this race that's, all these long distance mushers are craving this Yukon Quest 1000. And this is, almost as good, if not better, because you have this new trail, and nothing's better than doing a new trail for the first time, especially when it'll attract like all these experienced mushers get to do like something new. Like, imagine if you've been mushing for 15 years on the exact same events and the same trails, and you're looking for a reason to kind of get ready. It's not a coincidence that they announce this is happening now when it's time to start training. Or some people, it's already begun. You're like, all right, well, maybe we should get ready for a 750-mile event in early February. So I think it's also good to have like some healthy competition for Iditarod, like a race that's at this similar length, and you can do both. And it'll be interesting to see like which teams do both events, and if they do, like, are they going to be some of the dogs from each event? From the Yukon Quest also running the Iditarod, something that we've seen in years past. Lance Mackey and the Squid Acres folks, Cody and Paige, have run a Yukon Quest and Iditarod the same year several times, and you have these dogs doing it both races. So excited to see. It just creates this whole like new storyline for the mushing season that spills over not just to this event, but to the entire Alaska and really just international mushing community. Being able to add this extra distance, something that, a lot of people really like to do these longer distances, because it's just a different style than the mid distance race. When you spill into that, over 400, over 500 miles.
Dude, over, under, are you on your second cup of coffee right now?
I'm not. I've finished my second cup already on an empty stomach.
I'm just like, dude, you are dialed, dude. You're just like, you're just going, you're hitting all these points, and I'm just like, man, he's just feeling it. I'm letting it flow. No, I love it. Yeah, no, I'm excited to see a longer distance race, and I'm glad that, like, I feel like I've been critical of the newer version of the Yukon Quest in years past because, like, they're putting it on, but like it didn't feel like there were a lot of people. They were having all these like different kind of like distances. I was just kind of like reading about it, and it looks like they're going to do the 750 and then like have a fun run 80 mile one. So like, there's not going to be like the 100 or the 200 or the 450 or whatever it was. I'm excited about this. I really am. I'm, they'll just looking at things, they're gonna update more in the beginning of November. November 8th is when they're gonna open it up for the mushers to sign up. So I'll be kind of looking to kind of eyeball that and getting an idea of who's interested at least right off the bat. And yeah, hopefully there's some overlap there with some of the names that we see in some of these other races signing up there. So yeah, I think that's
Absolutely.
a good covers a good amount of what we kind of had been dialed into since our last episode. And so, yeah, just transitioning over to give a little preview on our time with Thomas. We met with him about a week or a little bit more ago. And I'll tell you what, scheduling this one was fun because, he's 6 hours ahead of me and Sean's 4 hours behind me. So there's like a 10-hour gap there. And, Thomas is busy in his training season. And, like I've got my stuff going on here. Sean's got his stuff. So, anyways, we were glad to finally get some time with him. And gosh, I mean, it flew by. It went so quick as it always does. There's a lot of things that I would have loved to talk about that we didn't get to, but before I say too much, I'll kind of flip it to you, Sean, and give you the first opportunity. Kind of, what was some of your takeaways of our time with Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, it was firstly he was on the road and we were concerned about like quality and of the stream and audio because it's been an issue in some of the earlier episodes. Uh and shout out to Norway's like 5G on these like
Dude.
remote highways. It's kind of wild. It came out pretty crisply, I think. And there's probably maybe a couple of stutters in there, but it was awesome quality. And I actually, I mean, I really don't feel like I've ever chatted with Thomas, so it was just like fascinating to get to know him a little bit. And we grilled him with some questions about Shellingia, which I think like a lot of people are curious about, and we didn't really touch on like everything, but it was cool to hear his history, Thomas's, with Shellingia's history, and to learn how to say his name, which I probably maybe also still not saying perfectly, but that is that is what I think. I think we're doing okay, and then just talk about his 2020 race and about the Finnmark and it was just a cool. It's like a different. It's different because when we're kind of typically talking to people that are in my corridor and he's on the other side of the Arctic. So it was really unique for us, I think, being able to talk to someone from a different corner of Mushing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, so what were some of my takeaways? I just like there seems to be like a professionalism to him that like I don't know, I just feel like he's been doing this for as long as he has, and he has like a great like business like professional mindset that kind of was apparent to me. You know, I I thought it was news to me that he was running this upcoming race with Shell, or he's like kind of on his, I don't know if they're necessarily doing it like literally next to each other, or if there's like kind of like um, maybe some mirroring. We didn't necessarily get into all those details, but essentially he's not going to. This is was my takeaway was he's not going to be able to like go back to back in theory from his last race was when he won in 20 to now. So that was kind of news to me, but like on the flip side to that is I think that like if you're gonna do something like this expedition, you know, adventure, like having someone who's done the race before, who has as much experience as Thomas does, doing it hand in hand with him, like it makes me feel even better about the setup, like in terms of the success of it. So just I thought that was interesting. And yeah, like Sean said, the on Shell's side of things, like I don't think we knew that he had as much experience in the mushing world as he has. Or like he talked about his previous work and how he's been to Alaska and how he already has some he's like familiarity with Alaska. It's not like he's a Norwegian person who's literally never been to Alaska or knows nothing about it. You know, and Sean, I guess, knew this, but I didn't know that last year he, with Thomas, did most of the race minus the Yukon or minus what do you call that? Where they went down and back, the loop?
Yeah, I mean the sure that I think that explains it enough. Saying the
Okay.
loop.
So yeah, like I didn't know that he was out there kind of
They
doing it already as well. So
right. Yeah,
um
they've done three Iditarod expeditions. One, I think, a couple. There was two of them that started in either McGrath or Nulato, and one of them started in the other. And then, yeah, you've got plenty of Norwegian experience at mushing as well. And he's also, just like I was stoked to hear that he came up here as a teenager and commercial fished. A bunch of different fisheries and that launched his career. You can make good money, especially back then when you look at the timeline of being a commercial fisherman for him. He's in his 60s now, and he was here as a teenager, so you were really making big money back then, I bet. And it was cool to learn that he came here just like and started his own like success from a young age, and earning it on a boat, which is not easy to do. And so, yeah, it's cool to learn about him. Cool. But yeah, it was also, we didn't spend the whole time on shelling. Yeah, we were
no.
just excited to hear from Thomas and yeah, he was, it was just a fun chat. And like, I would
Dude,
love to, I'm looking forward to getting to know him a little bit more
dude,
in the years to come.
how about the story? Okay, let's go here with this one. I guess we won't try to give too much of it, but like his story about essentially purchasing a plane after the Iditarod to get back to Norway. I don't want to say too much just so like you guys can enjoy that story and hearing it from Thomas, but like for me on my side, it was like anxiety inducing. I'm like, holy shit, you just bought a plane and like essentially an old plane and went to Norway. Like, dude. So yeah, there was a lot, and like the I would love to have picked his brain more about like just I don't know, like I've seen some posts from him lately about like dog nutrition and like dog training and stuff like that, and we kind of talked a little bit about that, but like the time flew by so much, and like he literally, he was in his car, he got to where he was going, he had someone waiting there to like meet him, so it was like, all right, let's respect his time, but I know we could have chopped it up with him for a good amount of time more, so um But yeah, Sean, anything else that you want to mention before we transition over to the interview with him?
It was really good to meet him, and yeah, I'm taking care of some border collies, so maybe it's a good time to. They're barking right now, so maybe it's a good time.
It's all good. We can't hear it on my side. I can't hear it, but all good. I know that feeling of like, wait, there's a lot of noise going on, but no, Thomas, we had a great time with him. We hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and thanks for tuning in. All righty, folks, welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're excited for our next guest. We're hoping there's no technical difficulties currently in the car right now, but welcome on 2020 Iditarod winner, Thomas Wærner. How's it going, man?
It's going very good. Started training dogs and looking forward to get back to Alaska again.
Yeah,
go ahead, Sean.
I was just like, I didn't know that you had been up in Alaska this year until I literally was in White Mountain and just like walking around on a frozen river, and then I just like turned around and it was you. I was like, hey, that was like not what I expected at all.
No, I've been kind of lucky because we had done 3 trips now, actually. 2 trips from Galena to Nome and then 1 trip from McGrath to Nome, the last year one. And it's so nice to actually be on the trail and just see the nature and just kind of enjoy the trail and in a not racing mood. I'm really when I'm racing, you're just focusing on dogs. So that now we're, you can stop, you can look at the mountains, you can look at the river, trees, everything. So it has been 3 really good years with good friends and good campfires and a lot of fun.
Yeah, what a cool way to experience the trail on a little less stressful. So for context for listeners, you've been doing these, helping and setting up the logistics of these like self-supported mushing trips that are, in March, and with Shell Ingia, who's
yes.
And he's going to be in the expedition class this year. And so it's pretty like not many people that are running their first Iditarod or I've actually seen, pretty much 75% of the trail. That's what good practice for him and for the dogs. But yeah, so it's cool to see out there, and it seems like a pretty like unique kind of expedition that you guys been going on the last few years. So how have those trips been going for y'all?
Well, the first year we had this amazing weather, with just campfires. We actually had a camp in the blowhole, the rock just before you hit the beach, and it was just blazing sunshine. And you were looking out, out of the sea, and it was just this camping trip. And then kind of, the level has kind of raised every year. We were going a little faster, a little more, not competitive, but, you've been focusing more on performance. And so kind of the idea of doing the race is kind of involved during, the last trip, actually, where we said, it would be fun to do the whole trail.
Yeah, you guys definitely get some like technical, sections of trail, whether even just on the river, some of the overflow, and definitely on the coast, getting to be on the hills, and it'll be exciting to get to go through the Alaska Range. I guess that's kind of like the only part that he hasn't seen, and I'm sure you guys were pretty excited this year when you passed through Caltag and you didn't turn left.
Yes, I'm also very happy not being a part of the race this year. That was also amazing that all the mushers that did the Iditarod this year with so many hours and miles on the river. That must have been mentally hard for both the mushers and the dogs.
Absolutely, yeah. I got to spend a lot of like number of days in Eagle Island, and yeah, there's a whole spectrum of emotions from the mushers coming through in each direction. It was it's always a rough trail one way or another on either side of Eagle Island. So yeah, a lot of time on the river. But that's exciting. So we kind of just went right into it with Shell Ingia. So he's going to be doing the debut of the expedition class, and is supporting the race with a big check to the race that's being given to some of the communities and to the event itself. And I guess you guys talked about it on this last trip that I saw you out in White Mountain. What talk about that process of like making this thing happen, and I mean, you guys got to be just super over the moon excited to get to be out on the trail during the race this coming year.
Yes, and the idea of kind of supporting the race, and it's actually something coming from him. He said, "How can I see the numbers on the race is going down? Less people, less money, and how can we support it? How can I, help the race and kind of find the ways to maybe make, boost the race a little again." And so we've been discussing, how we can support the race and how he think is good. And I think it's amazing that he's willing to put, so much money of his private money. This is not a company money. It is his private money that he's putting into the race. And I think that's amazing that he's willing to support it. But, Schelinge did actually mushing, I think 20 years ago. So he's not new to mushing. And he also the man behind, the krill and the Q-Paws and everything. He was the owner of the company and kind of approved the money that company was using. So he's well known into the dog mushing communities and likes the sport. And I think for Schelinge, it's a challenge. He likes that he has to work with dogs, that likes to, that, he see this, it's not like a slow machine. You cannot jump on it and just go. You have to give of yourself. You have to pet the dogs. You have to get the connection and everything. So I think for him, it's a great personal challenge and a kind of an adventure that he just enjoys. And of course, we had, the trips we've been on, it's been the greatest boys trips ever, I think so much fun talking about, all the boys drinks and drinking some beer and, enjoying and talking about life. And so it's kind of sad that, this trip will be a little rougher. So it will not be a camping trip like we had, but it will be great to see the trail again, and in a different way.
So I'm curious about your partnership. Like, how long have you guys known each other? And, is like this just kind of came up out of the blue, or has this been kind of like working its way towards this goal, for a while now?
Schelinge called me, almost 3.5 years ago and asked me, "Can you make a trip? I want to do, I want to do a really, really trip with dogs, not only going on a tourist thing." And that's why I said, let's go to Alaska and go from Galena to Nome. It will be an adventure, and you will see the trail, and it's a historic trail, and I know the trail, so it's easy for me to kind of have the safety and the protection and know what I'm doing. So this is actually Schelinge that just called me and I just asked, can you fix it? And I said, yeah, this is going to be fun.
Wow. And do you know each other outside of this, like prior to him calling you, or just kind of out of the blue got in touch with you?
I met Schelinge 1 or 2 times before, but not. I wouldn't say I know him at all before. Now I really know him really good, because we've been on so many trips, and now he's a friend. So now this was out of the blue that he called me, and I said, why do you want to do this? It's cold. It is challenging. It can be windy. It can be, this is Alaska, or whatever, you're going Norway. So it is not like it's not like a holiday trip you're going on with dogs.
And I was curious also, like, so you did that Iditarod in 2015, and then you did it in 2020. So, like, are you on like a 5-year Iditarod plan, or is this just like this kind of how it worked out? Or I guess this will be 2026, but you came for the 2025 Iditarod. So, I'm just kind of curious, like, the frequency of which you try to get to the Iditarod, is that just kind of by chance that it was every 5 years, or?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I still actually waking up sometimes dreaming about Iditarod. And, Iditarod is a very big part of my life. When I won the race, I've been reading about Iditarod since 1984 when I started mushing. So it's been, great to be a part of the race, and also, racing race. Of course, winning it was a big dream for me. So yeah, I hope I can come back, with a competitive team and actually race the race in the normal race and be so. But I'm bringing my dogs, so it's going to be a lot more fun for me this year to actually go the trail down with my own team. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. That's insane. I'm doing the math on 1984 to now. You've been on the runners for 40 plus years. I would never, you don't look like you're that old to have that much experience.
I've been doing Greenland dogs, I've been huskies, and then Forshers, sprint, stage racing, all kind of mushing. But I always, like the long distance and being out dog without, being out there in the nature with dogs for a long time. That's kind of my thing. I think it's that I just enjoy, and I don't stop. That's the crazy thing. When are you going to stop doing this dog mushing? And find something a little easier in life than having 40 dogs.
40 dogs. Wow. And I was watching a video, I think you just put it the other day, within the last day or two, of 12-year-old Iditarod veterans, and they were barking. They were looking ready for another run.
Yeah, and actually, I've been running, they're getting older now, so, they're not competing anymore. And it's been rough for me to having, that great team I had in 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, and then in 2023, they started to getting older. And it's been actually a rough ride to seeing that team going from that performing team to getting older. But now I'm enjoying, I just go out with them again, and I'm just enjoying to see the spirit and the wildness, and they're still crazy to go.
That's awesome.
It's a good lesson, something that you'll see in any sled dog tour that you go on is, what happens when the dogs are retired, and this is just a great example. Like, they're not done running. They just don't want to run the Iditarod anymore. It's still got plenty of pizzazz left. But,
yeah, and I think this is important that we show that we mushers actually show the dogs so much respect, and we give so much care. So it's not like that we are kind of using the dogs or getting rid of them as soon as they are old or in a certain age. We are actually giving them a good care for a long time, and we're giving them the best life a dog can have. I believe a sled dog is a happy dog. It likes to be used.
Yes, anyone that's ever been around working animals, they're happiest when they're getting to do the job that they were, that their DNA wants to do. So that's just cool. I didn't know about this video. I'll have to watch it after we're done here. So I just was like, I had one more question about shelling. Yeah. And firstly, the 20 years of experience, I thought it was like, in my head, I'm thinking, oh yeah, the last like 3 years, but that's awesome that he's been around sled dogs, for 2 decades. That's I think that's something that's like super important, when you're reading the headline of, the rich guy running the Iditarod, and it's like, yeah, but he's literally been doing this for 2 decades, and he's gone on 3 Iditarod trail expeditions. So, there's a lot of experience that's coming with him. And then obviously you having been a huge part of it, has played a role as well. Just he's got a lot of dog knowledge, like probably more than 90% of, Iditarod's all-time rookies, So, but I was curious, like, with all that experience with these awesome dogs, like what I think I kind of know the answer. Like, I think everybody would prefer to run like a more chill Iditarod, but how come he wasn't like, let's run like the regular event? Like what brought about the expedition aspect of it?
Well, I think Schilling has seen that, one of the challenges of doing that Iditarod is that actually to maintain the whole team the whole way. And of course, he's 66 and he doesn't have the same experience that me and you are. He also kind of sees that, it's a lot of work to take really high level care of the dogs to make them perform on the level, to make them perform the whole way. So when we were discussing this on the campfire, I said, yeah, well, we can do it. We just start a couple of days after the start, and we can just, it's a public trail. We can we will just be polite and pass some teams on them. It'll be fun. But then we start talking more about it, and then it will be fun to be a part of the race in a kind of different way. And then the supporting of the race also got in, and I said also this will give the race more media attention. That it needs to kind of be out there on the media and find ways to kind of get money into the race again. It is a problem for mushers and in the races in Norway and Alaska and other places to raise the money that we can do this great sport. And it's the same for me. I have to raise money to support my dogs with, dog food and all the things they need to have a great life. So I think this is a good way for Iditarod to have people with resources or other that can do the race in a different way. I also think that Iditarod should start, do like we do in Norway and have an 8-dog class and make a shorter Iditarod, to get people started with the race. And you don't have to have a level that is so high to even get to the finish line that is almost impossible if you haven't done dog mushing for 5 or 10 years. And Schilling doesn't have 5 or 10 years. He's 66. And he will like to do it now and test it and get a feeling. But it's not like, we are a different class with different rules, and it will be easier in one way and also rougher in another way. I will go with Schilling the whole way and kind of support him, and he will, of course, we'll be traveling together. So I think it's a perfect way to somebody to see the race in a different way, in a little easier way, actually.
Yeah. And so, go ahead, Shannon. Well, I was just, okay, we're going to dance around that all day. So you are going to be doing the race in support of him. You're going to be running like the same schedule as him. You won't get a chance to back up your win with another win, will you?
No, and this is not the Iditarod. This is the Iditarod expedition class. So, the winner of the expedition class is not the winner of Iditarod. That's totally different, with the... you're following your 16 dogs. You can take dogs out of your team, not putting into the team. If you have a problem, you have to kind of deal with it yourself. This will be, we will not have much support, but some support we will have. And so it is it's a totally different class actually. So, but it will be challenging. We're going to go the whole race, whole trail. We're going to be on the runners the whole way. We're going to have a schedule that are, we can decide a schedule. If we're tired, we sleep a little more, but it will definitely be a schedule that we are going to go on, that it's going to be testing, ourselves a little.
Gotcha. I think that I can imagine from your perspective, this is going to be like such an awesome, just to be like, I literally don't have to try and win this thing. That's so like, what a like, like coming into the start line and just being like, oh, sick. Like, I don't have to try to win the Iditarod. I'm just hanging out with my buddy Shalinga, and we're going to just do this at our own pace. And, you know, like you talked about how nice that was doing the support for those expeditions on the trail. And, so I'm just imagining like getting to be back on the trail with the dogs and get like that satisfaction, but not have to be, you know,
it's not the high expectation of, oh, okay, I got to back this up again.
Yeah.
So that it's like everyone talks about like the stress of getting to the start line. It's like this will be a little bit of a different way to enjoy, you know, the race. I feel like
I still think that the stress of getting to the start line is 100% there, because especially for these boys who are coming from Norway, you know, that is such a nightmare logistically, you know, I would imagine. And so but once you're on the trail, that I feel like it's going to be nice and relaxed for you, a little, not relatively relaxed.
I think that you know, so you're gonna get that relief. Finally, I'm on the trail. You know, it's that same feeling, but it will definitely be a different trip. And it's like I told Shalinga, you know, it will be a lot easier for me if we just start the day after. You know, that just don't part of the race, because it is a lot more things. You know, you have to kind of deal with when you're on a race. And you know, our Iditarod has been really good, and we are working with the Iditarod, the WEC team, to make all the, you know, so everything is, you know, we know the dogs are well taken care of. But I'm really looking forward to run my own team down the trail. That's going to be really fun. And if I'm lucky, you know, maybe I can raise some money and I will have a dog team that are experienced down the trail in an easier way. And they will be really competitive, you know, the year after. So it is also, you know, fun. It will be a great drive-through for my team, you know, to do the race in this way.
Yeah, great training for some younger dogs, or some just dogs that just haven't seen the trail. You know, you see a lot of teams in the competitive Iditarod where you'll see every year there's some name that you see that you're like, oh, they're going to be in the top 5, and then they end up just kind of running a chill schedule because they have a bunch of 2-year-olds. So that's cool. You get to do that. And I was just thinking about like the 20. So I saw, you know, after you won Iditarod, you won the Finnmarksløpet. I don't know how to say it right. I'm sorry. And
yeah, that's very right.
Okay. And I know that Dallas was in that race, you know, in around the same time. I'm not sure if you guys competed.
Yeah, we competed in 18 and 19. So so we were, Finnmark is very similar as Iditarod. It has a long, you know, it's many days, but it's also very different because it's like being on the coastline the whole way. So it is, and the snow up there is kind of more sticky. So it's actually slower going. So it's a different race, but it's a really nice. So you should do it one time if you have an opportunity.
Yeah, hell yeah, I'm in. To tell Shelling, yeah, I'm down. But yeah, the something that came up in the when I was working there with Dallas was the Triple Crown that is like now next to until the Yukon Quest 1000 gets rolling again, which who knows. There's always been whispers about it for 5 years now, but it just hasn't happened. But you know, the Triple Crown that's never been done, to my understanding, is winning the Iditarod, check for Thomas, winning the Finnmarksløpet again, check, and then winning the Yukon Quest 1000. So Dallas has done the Iditarod and the Yukon Quest, but hasn't won the Norwegian race. And then you can't go. I'm sure the second that 1,000 mile event gets back on, you're going to be booking your ticket, you know?
Yes, several. I was actually hoping to do the Yukon, you know, with my team that is old now, but you know, they kind of changed it. So if they get back on track, you know, on the real race again, you know, the really long one, I think that's going to be my main goal, to try to raise the money and then go over again. So
yeah, that would be.
So then Dallas have to go to Finnmark then. So we will.
Yeah. Well, he did it. He tried to do it. You know, he did a podium finish. I think he finished third the second go round, and then had some issues on the first one where he ended up not finishing. But yeah, I'm sure you were like, I'm not letting this bastard win this thing when you saw that he was in there.
And racing against Dallas is great. He has so high level, and he's so competitive, and he's into all the details. And I think that's also important that we have mushers like Dallas and others that are willing to still putting in time and be competitive, and always drive. That it is a really high level of competition. I think that's something that drives me. I would like to see the numbers on the Iditarod and Finnmark and Femin's race to have more competitive teams again that are on the high level. So you really have to push yourself and make it all the effort to win. That's when it's great to win. I think that's the same feeling for Dallas and other mushers that have been on the top level. They want to have competition. That's so maybe it will be a race for me and Dallas again.
Yeah, well, I think I'm not the only one that's hoping that you guys can make that happen again. And yeah, it was fun to see. I'm sure you're following the race a little bit when you're out on the trail these last 3 years. It was fun for me to get to see Jesse and Matt Hall and Paige just kind of, they were battling it out for deep into towards the end of the race. And yeah, Jesse pulled away, but it felt like that, peak era of competitiveness, seeing a couple glimpses of it, and it was pretty cool, I think, for fans, and so I'm sure you're plugged in a little bit to that as well.
Yeah, I look at all the races and following, tracking, going update all the time to see what's going on. So, and I think it's important that we have systems that are working, so we will have people are following the race and kind of keeping it going.
So I was curious. I'm seeing you in your truck right now. Are you in the truck that you won from the Iditarod?
It was actually, you want to kind of more credit. So you are and Margot bought the credit, and they bought another Jeep of it. So and bringing in Norway has these crazy tax rules. So bringing a Dodge or American truck to Norway is just insane much taxes. You pay more in taxes than the car is worth. So that's just stupid.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm in a modern car. I'm in a Tesla.
Oh, nice. Cool.
So
nice. Yeah, it's a big old sunroof right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a great car for economy in Norway. We have all the charging stations, and it's you don't use anything. You don't use fuel anymore, so it's good.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking that that year you won may have been the last year they had a truck or a vehicle as part of the winnings for the winner. So
they did have a snow machine in 2021.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this is one of the issues we have to kind of start discussing in the sport. How will the sport survive in 10 years? I will hate to see if our Iditarod or Finnmark's race or a Femin's race or other great races kind of goes under because it's not the economy, it's not enough mushers that has the economy to do it. So, we have to start discussing how can we raise money so the race will be there in 20 years also. So, so it's nothing I will hate to read about the great race that used to be. I will like to read and be looking at the tracking, even when I'm in the old people home, and I can still follow the race, and I'm not worried about the sport, how it's going and how expensive things are getting now to be a musher. So I'm hoping we can find ways, so the sport, the mushers and the races actually have, the sport they need.
Yeah. Before we pressed record, we were kind of talking about, the numbers dwindling in the Iditarod, and you're seeing the same thing happening in Norway as well with the Finnmarksløpet and other smaller events, or like is it similar to what's going on in Alaska as well?
Yes, in the long races, the similar, like the Finnmark, the long Fem, you will see a drop of a lot of mushers, and because it's so expensive to have that open class team, to be able to have enough dogs, to breed enough dogs, to train enough dogs, to feed enough dogs. But what we're seeing is that the 8-dog class is going up. So it is actually the 8-dog class is kind of increasing, is going up. But the open class is actually going a little down, and it's not disappearing, but it's not good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a theme we've touched on. I think something that you've emphasized in the last couple of responses that is that the cost of life for everybody. Forget mushing. Life is more expensive, and properties, fuel, dog food, which is like one of the biggest expenses for any musher. A bag of high quality kibble is like almost $80 in Alaska. Yep. So you having this pipe dream of going and running the Iditarod and starting your own kennel and getting, used to be able to just easily get a property and get some dogs and, spend 30 grand and have it all like have your new kennel started, and now that's just not as easy. There's just way more barriers. And, so yeah, that makes sense that it's not just in Alaska, it's in Norway. You see mushers like move down, like Wade Mars comes to mind, where he's like, he had a kid. He's like, I want to go down somewhere it's cheaper. And he was telling me that, a bag of kibble down there is so much more reasonable, so yeah, Norway's so farther away from things. Alaska's even farther away. So yeah, it's a tough puzzle to solve, and there's a lot of great ideas out there and hopefully, people can come together and make this thing continue on.
Yeah, I think for me, this is a perfect test for me also with the kennel, because I'm going to do the famous race and try to be competitive there, and it's a good training for me for the race. But I also think that maybe I have to take 1 year with you can guide or help somebody or bring somebody with you, and then the next year I will race. So maybe this is one of the things that can work for me, that I can actually support after 1 year with kind of you raising money for the kennel, and 1 year where you're using money on the kennel. So I think this is it's important that we have the discussion, and like Norway and Alaska now, it's tourist kennels that are driving the sport now, that actually have the money to do the races. So it is starting to get more professional, that you have to do tourists to kind of be able to afford to do the race. And then you also maybe are not, like Dallas doesn't race each year, and I think that's because he has to put in his work in his kennel and his business. So I don't know if that's the reason why he doesn't race each year, but I will guess that you have a company, you have to work.
Yeah, that's definitely seeing that across the board. Not just with tourism kennels, just Dallas and his dad, they've got these big tour operations, and Travis Beals has a good one, and Martin Boozer and Matt Failer and all these guys have. There's like the Two Rivers mushing community they've got a great thing going up there near Fairbanks. The Susan Butcher family, there with Trailbreaker Kennel, I believe. And so, yeah, there's all these tourism things, but then there's just people that just, they commercial fish, work construction, someone that comes to mind, Eddie Burke, that he's just been kind of getting his kennel developed and getting, his dogs, his property ready, and just kind of working and saving up and developing. And so there's lots of people in that same wheelhouse of like, all right, this year we're just going to have fun with the dogs, keep them moving, keep them happy, maybe do some trips, but you're not going to be going and running the Iditarod every year for most mushers, or running races in general, because it's easy to keep them. You can keep them happy and not, and not have to go and do a 300-mile event. And so you're seeing a lot of people do that. And it's cool that that's an adjustment, and there's going to be lots of adjustments like that, I think, moving forward.
But the problem for a race, if they don't get enough mushers to sign up, they have less money. And also, the cost of the race, just the running the race, especially Iditarod, when you have to fly out everything, it's really good that you see the Alaskan companies, like, NAC and other companies, or Alaska Transit and other, they're supporting the race and they're still giving. And that's, really important to keep the race going. But if you look at the cost of making race, just to fly out the straw, it's so, and the cost of a straw in Alaska, it's like 10 times the price in Norway, I think. So it is so costly, this part, so we have to find ways to kind of find money to be able, to race. And we need mushers, it should be, Iditarod should be at least 40 to 50 mushers each year. That will be a great number, I think. And of course, if it's more, but 40, 50, and you have maybe 10, 15 competitive teams, that will be, really, really good to see.
And that brings us, back to Schilling, that he is like, I never heard of him, but he's pretty famous, I think, in like your neck of the woods, right? And so like people are going to be, watching for the first time just to check out what he's doing, and that brings this whole, and I'm sure, there's potential for a whole another corridor of maybe getting some other sponsors, that weren't ever really aware of mushing, until he signed up to do this expedition race.
I think if Iditarod, this year is just Iditarod, and we're trying, this class and see what it's going to be. But I think it's a good way to Iditarod to open it up for people that have researchers and maybe are able, to find the love of the sport and actually put money into the sport. But if you look at Schilling, he used to be a fisherman, out in the Bering Sea. So, that's where he jumped on a boat when he was 16 years old and went to Seattle. And I remember the whole story, and he worked his way up from nothing. So, and a lot of it, and he started with one boat, he was working on a boat, saved up money to one boat, saved up money to two boats. So he's been fishing, his whole life outside Alaska, and been delivering fish in Alaska. So, he is well known in Alaska. It's not like Alaska is something new for him. This is where he used to work. And he's used to be hold on his hand and not sleeping and being out there for days, and weeks fishing. So he knows how it is to be hold and not sleep. So he didn't used to be a billionaire, the whole time. He comes from a small city called Molde, where he kind of struggled in school and just went out, jumped on a boat. Well, no money, nothing at all. Just started from scratch. Wow. I think that's one of the cool things I like with Schilling, that he knows how it is to kind of work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a tough business there, working Bering Sea fishermen. There's a reason there's TV shows about it, and I've gotten to go and do my own commercial fishing and get an idea of how tough it is. I mean, in some types of fishing, and specifically in the Bering Sea, in the sleep schedule and the conditions you're working in are maybe more difficult than mushing. So yeah, that's a definitely good training for him. That's important for people to know. Like that's so cool that he just showed up at 16 and just has been grinding his way to now, this level of success that he's reached over his adult life. That's awesome.
I think that's a good, and I mean, he has so much stories, and it's so much fun, being around the campfire with him because, being around fishermen, then you have a lot of stories. So yeah. So that's kind of the part of the whole thing, also that he is just like one of us when we are camping, or we are just boys on trip, and I think that's one of the great things that's been about the whole journey now, and now we're doing the race and gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely am thinking. I can just picture the conversations, him being like, the wave was 85 feet tall or 35 meters tall. And, I at least that's how I tell my stories. So back to you. So 2020, I got to run that. That was my rookie year. And, very strange experience getting to hear COVID as it's happening during the race, and you get these little trickles of information. I didn't even really, I was like sending a couple texts on InReach, but I didn't really have, so you get this information and the next thing you know, this checkpoint, the villages are shut down and checkpoints now, just a couple tents, where otherwise you'd be going into Caltag, and a new lotto comes to mind as well. And so I didn't see your finish. I had my own situation going on, and but I'm sure it was just like, what a strange year for you to get. It was like the real event, you got the full all the way to Nome, but at the end you get to the finish line, and I imagine, there's not a lot of people, or maybe they're like, how was the finish? Was there talk about that experience?
Yeah, I had the same feeling as you were doing the race. You're suddenly getting all this information that you don't want to actually hear. And I was worried. My biggest worry, are they going to stop the race? That would be really bad. And I was in a good position, and so but when I got to like Sartolik, they had digged out, the whole old town, and they made a fire and a bed and everything. And I said, this is like, it's even better actually.
That was a sick checkpoint.
Yeah, it was so good checkpoint for the dogs with the, the protection and everything. So my whole experience, going up there before I got to the finish line was just, this is just fun. But when I got to the finish line, people didn't care. There was so much people out there, so it was maybe less people, but it was a lot of people showing up, and I had the police cars supporting me, up and everything. So I got the real finish. But the day after 12 o'clock, everything closed down, and you were sitting there in Nome in a small house. There's no party. There's no nothing happening after the race, and and I got stuck to the 2nd of June. So I was in Alaska.
Yeah.
So it took. That was that was not very good. So I had a great time because I was with my friend Arlie, and also we had this great boys trip, making barbecue every day and drinking a couple of beers and enjoying. But it was rough for the wife home and the kids and everything. So I was kind of having this great vacation, and they were.
That's hilarious. You're like sitting there like having a beer, and you're like, yeah, babe, I'm just super bummed I'm not going back.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have my third cup of coffee this morning. I just 2 hours to get started. So it was also great that I was able, and then it was this crazy trip with that plane. I found that plane on the junkyard in Everest, and we flew that old plane back to Norway, and it was a really amazing trip. And it's kind of one of the things in life that this is kind of strange to experience, to find this plane from, I don't remember the 1950s or 60s, and then fly it over, it was a really cool story because actually when we hit straight on Bergen. And Rob, who is the owner of Everest, he was flying, and then they had cleared so he can go a drive through like Top Gun, but far up in the sky. But he went a Top Gun with that old DC-6, like 30 meters above, the surface, the railway, and he went straight, and I was not allowed to do at all. So we had this kind of Top Gun going through, through the tower and everything with that old plane 2 times actually, one in Bergen and one when we landed in Stavanger. So, that was a so big adventure, and kind of if we want to finish on Iditarod, this is the way to do it. Kind of go home with the old plane, and that was a great adventure.
Seems like there was a lot of you get like these experiences, like getting to spend 9 weeks with the boys in Alaska, getting to go and do the this crazy plane trip that I don't fully understand. Like, I kind of want to delve into that a little bit more, but just there's there was a lot of like silver lining to your getting stuck and some of the troubles that you were having. You got to do these cool things that'll pretty much won't ever happen again, and wouldn't have happened had you not been in that situation. So that's kind of cool to have that positive experience from that. But so wait, you say an old, like, what do you mean Everest plane? Like, what is that? What do you mean by that?
It used to be a fuel plane, a cargo plane for Everest, but it was actually the first plane in the first airline in Norway. So the old plane is sitting in a museum now in Norway.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, and when we took off from Fairbanks, it broke down after 40 minutes. We had to turn back and fix the engine. So it was leaking oil from the engine. I said, "Oh shit, is this gonna make it?"
Oh God.
Genius. I'm getting nervous over here, just like listening to the story. I'm like, geez, I'm like, how do you trust yourself to get on a plane so old that's just sitting in a junkyard? Like,
well, I'm thinking it's just the way I am. I like adventures. My drive is to have adventures and have, for myself, with my dogs, with friends or family, always have this new things happening. So I've been really lucky that, the whole experience with Shilling also, it's been a kind of adventure for me. And so the dog marching has given me a lot of things, a lot of good friends, and a lot of adventures that I drove strong. And I think that's also the part why I'm not quitting dog mushing. I've been doing it for so many years, and I still have the drive. I like to go to the dog yard, pet the dogs, hook them up, go for a run, look at the new young dogs that are coming up, new puppies. This looks like my old dog, and this is going to be a good one. I like the attitude, and you kind of still have that kind of passion and drive for something. Even, I'm 52 now, so not old, but getting older. So it's So I think I'm lucky that has still drive, passion to do something I really want.
Yeah.
So you've been able to be mushing for like 40 plus years, right? And we've talked about the changes in mushing and how things are more expensive. What have you been able to do to stay consistently in the mushing world? Like, from a financial standpoint, do you have a tourism setup, or like, are you just kind of working off of sponsorship money? How do you raise the money, especially then getting your team to Alaska? That's another cost that not many mushers have because they're already there. I was just kind of curious about like the business side of things for you.
Well, I've always been good on finding solutions and finding ways, and I've always been good of working hard, and giving of myself. So to the sponsors, always working, always trying to give some extra. It takes a lot of effort to raise sponsors, but still, I have my sponsors. My first sponsor jumped on in 1996. I'm still sponsoring dry food from them, and we are, it's like 30 years soon. I made that deal. So I think giving of yourself, being willing to work for your sponsors, always providing that you are a asset and not the only somebody they are just giving some bags to. You just have to work hard. And I think if you're doing tourists or whatever, you are willing to put in hours that are crazy for many people. So I think that's kind of if you want something, you are going to work. You have to work hard for it, and you just have to find your way with your personality. Some people are not good to talk in a lot of people around, they have to find other ways than the way I do it. So, but definitely hard work pays off. That's the way it is.
Nice. It's true. It's true. I'm thinking about your 2020 race still, and I'm like, again, I was in the race, so I didn't follow like how you won. Like what even happened? I feel like there was the storm that I remember where it just was nuking snow, and it snowed like a foot, and it was like 35 degrees and just like slow, and like you in that system of that came in, that's the teams that were running a more aggressive schedule had to back off because of the trail conditions, and I felt like you had run a more slower, more rest in that first half, and then that storm happened and it played into your strategy like better. Is that kind of what happened?
It's kind of what happened. I saw that I had a team that were quicker from Ruby. Actually before I felt I had a really good feeling when I went out from Takotna. I knew I could be in position to win. I saw the team were performing, they were eating, they were all good. And then I saw also when I got to Cripple that, okay, we are starting gaining speed on the other teams. And I just kept the momentum and I rested enough. I didn't push at all. I even stopped from Cripple to Ruby. I stopped 1 hour and 15 minutes on the trail to not take that long run down to Ruby. And after Ruby, I saw the team were just, actually picking up speed. They were going faster and faster. But then I got to Caltag, and then, the whole weather just turned. Suddenly started to rain. It snowed a foot of snow. It was so, I just looked at the trail and I said, this is going to be slow going. And I looked at my inReach. I got the weather, coming in on the inReach, and I saw, okay, this is going to be warm. So I just decided to go straight from Caltag to Uniclete in one stretch with a foot of snow. I had to break trail the whole way, actually. So I think I used 12 hours, but I also knew that my team are strong enough mentally to do it. Because, I train up in the mountains all the time, and I have a big concrete block always in the sled, that are really heavy. So I always go heavy training, and I knew this is something they can deal with. And when I got to Uniclete, everybody stopped at Old Woman's Cabin, and I suddenly had this lead that was just incredible. So you just can, actually go easy to the finish line.
Dang. Okay. I didn't know you did the full portage run there, that 12-hour run. That's amazing. And then you were able to just basically go run for run with the people behind you, and they never could catch up. That's okay. Wow.
So the strategy from the police was actually, when they are coming into checkpoints, I just go out. That was nice. The only strategy I had from. So it was going along the whole way, but it was it was amazing, having that team that had that performance. And after 8 hours on the way from Caltech to Uniclete, I had a hard time stopping them in the trail to give them snacks. They were so crazy. They were screaming and shouting, and like you look at that video, they were like that. And I said, I think this is the peak performance you can do with a dog team that I'm actually experiencing now. So I think that moment, that was actually one of my greatest experience with a dog team. And I felt, it can't be better than this, and it's going to be hard to make it one more time like this, actually.
Yeah, sounds like a total magic carpet ride.
Yeah.
And yeah, but what an amazing experience for you and for the dogs. Man, that's yeah, congrats on that. I'm glad to, I think everybody's going to be real excited to see you this year, and I'm sure you're going to be excited to be back in the event.
Yeah, I'm looking really forward. And like I said, bringing my own dogs is going to be so fun. It's dogs are dogs, but your own dogs are more special.
When you ran 2020, that wasn't your dogs?
Yes, aren't my dogs, but this year, the last 3 years we've been having other people's dogs. So right. So going down the trail again with my own dog team again, like yes. I did in 15 and 20, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, nice.
So, Sean, I think we should move into our little wrap-up phase. I know, Thomas, it looks like you've stopped moving in your vehicle, so I know that means you're probably getting to the next phase of the day or the evening for yourself. We're just going to ask a couple of soft kind of hitting questions. We kind of do this to wrap up our podcast episode. And so one thing I'll start with is, when you're on the runners, are you listening to something, or are you on natural? Are you just listening to your dogs? Or you listen to a podcast? Or you listen to music?
I used to listen to music, but it's many years ago. I think it must have been in 16, 17. I decided to stop listening. I think it takes away your focus on your dog team. And I think also it's better for you to not listen, because the hours just kind of slides away, it just floats away. Is a good word. When you're not listening, when you're giving stimuli to your brain, you are getting less focus on your dog team and also on yourself. So no music.
Natural.
Or podcast or nothing.
I like it.
I went the same way too. You come back from like being silent for 4 or 5 hours, and it's like, if you got ideas about your dogs and you got ideas about your own life, and you're like, I miss having that.
And there's so much noise in society now. We have, the social media, we have television, we have meetings, we have work. We are always having all this kind of noise. So I think that's one of the key things with dog mushing, I think, is that you're getting this break from society when you are just, listening to the dogs just floats through the nature. So it's, I recommend it. Just get used to it, not having stimuli. I think that's good for new mushers to learn.
Hearing you say that takes me back. So I used to do some triathlons, and when you're running and you're on your bike, it's just like you throw in the headphones and you go. But when you're training for the swimming portion, unless you have some fancy underwater, setup, you can't listen to anything. And, I'd be in there, and it's just like, I would figure out life, because like, I don't have stimuli. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I got to figure this out and figure that. And I'm actually figuring it out, as opposed to being distracted or, looking at something else. So just kind of hearing you say that makes me think of that.
Yeah, and I think for your brain, the brain gets a break, and you also, your creative side. If you, in work or with their, kennel or new equipment, it's like when you wake up again, after you got home, it's like all these good ideas just kind of flows into your brain. And I think that's why you should also do it, is that you will be better and smarter and have better ideas how to, perform in dog mushing and other things in life. So I highly recommend turn off your podcast, turn off your music, and enjoy the dogs.
Turn off your podcast unless it's Mushing Alaska. Then you have to listen.
That's a good one in the car. Car is perfect for podcasts.
Nice. Okay. My question is, like, I'm sure you've got like some awesome, all-time lead dogs over the years that, come to mind. But I was more asking, like, what's a story of a dog who has like, is kind of a knucklehead, or maybe has like a bad habit that you just can't shake from the dog, but he's, you're like, it's worth it because he's, makes up for it, or she makes up for it in other ways.
Well, I believe the really great lead dogs, they are kind of the far out dogs. It's the AG, the dogs, high energy dogs, and you have to you cannot tell them in a hard way how to do it. You have to kind of follow and find the way to act with them. But when you kind of get that connection with those dogs, they will give you everything and more, and you will have that kind of special bond. You have motivation runners in dogs, and they are really good lead dogs for maybe 200 miles, 300 miles. They run on a high level as long as they have highly high motivations. But the really dogs, they never stop. They just They just go and go and go. And that's the dog with a little attitude. And you can see it from their puppies many times that this dog is going to be something, especially when they get 8 or 9 months. You just see this dog, that little extra. I call it, I call it urhund in Norway. It's the nature dogs. The really old school dogs that just have it. They're just lead dogs. They're something special.
They got that oomph.
Yeah, they have.
All right, I'll do my last question, and we'll leave it to you, Sean, to wrap it up. I usually ask this one: who's on your Mount Rushmore of mushing? Who are like to you the most inspirational mushers or most influential mushers to you in your mind? And that can be someone who's won a bunch of races, but it also could just be maybe someone who showed you the ropes when you were, gosh, you said 52, so 10 was the first time maybe you were on the runners. But yeah.
Yes, it's been many people that have been, mentors or inspiration for me. But I was so lucky. I was a handler for Roger Lagarde and Laila Lagarde. That also is a Iditarod musher. He was in the 70s, I think, or in the 80s maybe. I was when it was 80s. He did Iditarod, and he's been one of the best sprint mushers and stage racing. He's been the judge now for many years in the races in Norway in long distance. So they've been a so big part of my life. And then the year after, I went to Roxy Wright and Charlie Champagne and was a handler for them for a year or a season. And that, kind of gave me that kind of boost that they were just, you have those kind of people that have so much knowledge. They've been doing the dog mushing, and not only dog mushing, but, finding ways with money and how you're going to race the dogs and everything they knew about, having a kennel. It's been so important. But I also would say that, like Rick Swenson, it's been big inspiration. Susan Butcher, of course, all the old school mushers that has been there, and did those first races, Jeff King, Martin Boozer. It's been so many, and it's a long list of mushers that I always kind of look up to and trying to learn. I think Dallas is also it's a big inspiration for me. It's the way he does things on a high level. It is different stages of life. You get different people that are inspiring you.
Nice. Awesome. Sean, what you got? Last one.
Okay. So you being, we don't get to interview someone who's, living in Norway all that often. And so something that comes to mind is like this era of Norwegian excellence that's, still happening to a degree, but like, my understanding was there was this, kind of super team with Robert Sorley, and I don't remember all the other mushers, but like from your perspective, you're mushing, back in those days still. And what was that like how big of a deal was that, like, from your perspective?
Oh, it's a very important that you have a competitive racing. So you really have to push yourself hard in the race. You have to do all the work, all the training, all the nutrition, everything you need to do. And the higher level, the competition has, the better you have to be. And I think Robert and Bjørnar Andersen and Kjetil Bakken was the Team Norway. They were on so high level, and all the others have to. That's what actually when I started with going back to long distance in 2002, 2003. And, they were so inspiration that, I wanted to, beat them, of course. So, and I knew I had to work hard to kind of get on their level. So, and the competition in Norway, it's been many, many good teams. And I think that's the reason why you saw Robert went over, and won the race 2 times. And other mushers coming from Norway and doing good.
Yeah, that's that. I wish I would have been, around for paying attention back in those days, because what a cool experience for you guys, the Norwegian super team to get a couple of wins and just always be up there in the top 5 for those years. And but yeah, well, we'll probably see you up in the top 5 here next 2027, and we're going to see you out in the trail this year helping out with the expedition class. And super thankful to have you we were able to conjoin 3 different time zones. There's some crazy mathematicians, it's 12 or 1 o'clock in Atlanta. It's 10 o'clock in the morning here. It's 9 at night almost for you in Norway. So thank you for accommodating our schedules and for hanging out with us, Thomas.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see you in Alaska in March.
All right, yeah, same here.
Mushing, Alaska. And we also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.